Well, hello again, YouTube. AJ Shaver with Shaver Sales here, and I was looking back across the YouTube channel the other day and realized I haven't done a Halverson video in quite some time. So I ordered up everything from the 150 and down, ordered them with some accessories and different things. So I'll go ahead and show you what we have lined up here. And you would never tell that yesterday morning was -5. Now it's like 45 degrees and all of the snow is melting, and we're going back into like, oh, I don't know, the 20th consecutive mud season now. So it's just been one of those goofy winters, but let me grab the camera, we'll get it moved around, and I'll show you all about these cool units. All right, so this is just how the units come, all up on a nice big heavy oak pallet. The band straps going around, securing everything. This is a 120. With a 4-way and a 6-way. This is a 140 with a 4-way and a 6-way. And we have the big 150. Again, we ordered it with the 4-way and the 6-way on it. Just gonna need a couple of things to get these off the pallet. You got the steel band straps here. So either a pair of cutting dikes or a grinder, to kind of nip those. And then everything else is pretty much the half-inch lag bolt that goes all the way around, just securing the processor to the pallet itself. And then while you already have that half-inch out, your owner's manual and other documents are always down inside the tread plate. So whether the tread plate's on the 150, the 140B, might even be able to sneak down in here and see. There's the little goodie baggie there. That's got our 14-pin connection in it. But everything's marked and documents inside. But there's 4 half-inch bolts here on the 140. I believe there's 2 or 3 on the 150. And then the 120, there's actually 5. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there's a sneaky 5th one over here on the outside. And while we're here, just above the logo, this is going to be your VIN tag. So you'll need that for the warranty information. That's all part of the documents that are down inside the processor. So oh, and also to mention, we also have an A and a B for where the little grabber arms go in. It just kind of helps size everything up properly. Just it's the holes going down through. They've now ovaled them out just a little bit, which kind of helps with the fitment, but still they have been tested at the factory. So if you can kind of line that up, you'll get a little bit better of an install. But let me grab some tools and I'll show you all about these units. All right, well, these are the big 3 from Halverson, the 150, the 140B, and the 120. And we'll get the camera out of the tripod. I'll do a little walk around on each one of these and kind of tell you what's the same and what's different. And today is February the 5th or so, 2023, and kind of give you the prices too. So if you're watching this and it's more than, any number of time from now, don't hold me to the pricing, because it might change. So let me get the camera out, we'll flip it around. All right, so I figure I'll start over here with the 120 model. And yes, we made a custom bracket for the back of the E60 excavator. It has that Bobcat exchange system on it. It's like 3-inch heavy-duty square stock steel. Found out that if you can put it like on a 45-degree angle, it gives you the most roll out of the bucket. And then we just got the skid steer levers and latches off of eBay for a couple bucks. But anyway, this is the 120 model. And all 3 of the processors require 15.5 gallons a minute at 2850 PSI or more. The other piece is they come with the standard 14-pin plug. None of my machines that I have here have that 14-pin plug, so we're running on the in-cab harness, which I'll show you a little bit better of an install job that we did on the S300, because the Toolcat, we take that one in and out for doing demos here on the woodlot, and I actually don't have the E60 wired up yet. But anyway, I digress. The 120 is pretty much the entry-level processor. Its starting price is $10,650, and again, that comes with the manually adjustable 4-way. There's 5 different positions for the height. You can see the holes there, and if you take out that 1-inch pin, then that just lets it kind of float up and down inside the I-beam. We do have each one of these units with the additional optional 6-way wedge. And when you're running the 6-way, because of the double angle here on the wedge, I've often taken out this 1-inch pin down here and just put in like a 3/8 or a 5/8 size pin, like from the pickup truck, just to kind of give that a little wiggle room. It just gives it some relief between that bottom ear and the I-beam. The specifications on this, I always recommend 16 inches and down, and that restriction is something that I've put on there for my own personal time running this. The factory will tell you there's 20 inches worth of usable cutting space, and there is, but if you can't get this grabber arm to get a good squeeze on it, the wood just kind of passes by. So we figured that about 16 inches and down is like the optimal processing size. And why there's 20 inches worth of usable cutting space is if you pick up a full 20-footer, it'll kind of lay in right through here. So you can clamp it, basically grip it and rip it, with the bar, and that way you can buck off a 20-footer or a 24-footer. Optimally lengthwise for the log going on this is about 10 feet, 12 if you can get the butt end facing, the wedge itself. It's kind of like the fat kid on the teeter-totter. You can go longer off of one side if you have more weight on the other. It's the same oiler bottle as the other 2 models. It just happens to be recessed down in below the tread plate. And the grabber arm itself is exclusive to the 120 itself. The saw motor is on the inside down here. It just takes your regular 14 millimeter or 9/16 socket to change out the bolts there. Your tension screw is right there, center screen, little flathead Phillips, or a flathead screwdriver rather, sorry. So this one's like changing the saw chain on your chainsaw because everything is kind of recessed. You have the drive sprocket going right to the bar and up, where the 140, the motor's on the outside, so there's an extra step there. Grease fitting wise, the big pivot down here at the saw, base of the saw, come on camera, there we go. And then the top of the saw cylinder, and then if you follow that way down inside, you'll see some cutouts down there. That's how you recess or access those. And on top of the grabber arm cylinder right there, and then also if you follow that one straight down, you'll see the cutouts on the bottom. The other piece that's vastly different here is the table itself. This is only about 6 inches from the I-beam to the top of the table, so effectively that is your pusher plate. So if you were trying to split on the 6-way wedge, I always try to drop the 6-way down a little bit, because if you look straight down the table here, you can kind of see how it comes in contact just about even with the bottom 4 there on the splitter wedge. So you'd have all that extra wood would be above the table. So I always try to drop that down, the wedge down a little bit, just to allow the wood to come in better contact with it. So when you get over to the 140, it's about 12 inches tall, but those are the major differences here on the 120 unit. All right, so this is the 140B, and This does weigh about 1,600 pounds. The 120 that I forgot to mention weighs about 950 pounds. So you get a pretty good step up in steel. And right off the bat here, you'll see there's some differences with the table. You kind of have a little rolled edge right here to allow any knots or limbs that hang off the log to come straight up and on, versus just that dead flush cut. Little fishtail there to kind of help keep everything on the table itself. The 140 has a completely different grabber arm on it, so it opens up just a little bit more, and you can see the heavy duty welded in cleats. I do tell people this one's rated for about 18 inches. Again, the factory is going to tell you 20 inches worth of usable cutting space on the bar, but because we use what we sell, I like to have an even expectation of what each of these units will do. And about 18-inch diameter gets you pretty good squeeze on the log itself. And then again, if we look down the table, you can see that we're pretty much right in line with that four-way. We're actually a little bit above it. So it's a lot bigger pusher plate. Then around the backside, this is something that begins with the 140B and moves into the 150. This is a log length cut guide back here. It runs off of a proximity sensor inside the table itself, and every time that the cylinder strokes backwards, it will stop once this comes in contact with the proximity sensor, which is located right there. So if you want a longer log, you slide this forward. If you want a shorter one, you take it backwards so it trips sooner. I think I got that right. There's our oiler. It's a half-gallon oiler. And then down underneath, that's the little piston pump that kind of drives everything. On the bottom of that, it's a 3/4 inch jam nut along with a 3/8 or a 7/16 adjustment nut. If you take that in clockwise, it will cut off the oil going to the bar. And reversely, if you go counterclockwise, it will add more oil to the bar. Everything is run at the factory itself, so they do run bar oil through it. They do their adjustments, and everything kind of goes from there. On the 140, you can see that the cylinder is exposed, where over here on the 120, everything's kind of sealed off. This is a bigger cylinder. It's a 3.5-inch custom cylinder inside the 140B, where the 120 just has a standard 3.5-inch. And it comes from having a bigger rod on it, so it strokes just a little bit quicker. You come around here to the bar, you'll notice that the saw motor is on the outside, which means there's just one extra step when you go to change the chain on this. So you have your standard 9/16 or 14 millimeter, and then you come down here, I believe these are 5/8, so you do have to loosen the motor, bring this back to create a gap between the saw motor and the housing. And what that does, that enables the drive sprocket and that output shaft right here to come over enough that you can get the saw chain between that output shaft down in there and the sidewall. It's also a safety thing, so if the chain ever came off the bar, it has something to get wrapped around versus just getting flung out across the woodlot and possibly hurting somebody. It's the same reason that the 120 has that guard over the bottom of the saw too, just to keep everything put together. So this is the pusher plate. So again, you're about twice as tall, and so this is what shoves the wood through the wedge. So you're significantly taller, but that works out well for pushing things through, but not so much on that last cut. You'll see some of the videos where the log kind of drops in there and goes to what I call a telephone pole, where it kind of goes straight up and down versus laying in. Where on the 120, because it's shorter, you can actually cut off that last piece and it comes in on an angle, so you can push it forward, back the table up, it sets in, and then you can process it through. So each one has their advantages. It just depends on what you're doing. But again, the biggest differences are the pusher plate, the saw motor, the actual size of the unit. It weighs in around 1,600 pounds. The table is a little different, the grabber arm is different, the cylinder is different, and you do get the upgraded log length cut guide built into the table versus that 120 unit. All right, so this is the big boy. This is the 150. And again, you'll see it has a very similar table on it. It has that tapered edge with the extra little piece there. Because this handles a bigger log, you'll notice there's a little piece of angle stuck in here for a longer foot or a longer hand that goes on the arm there coming in. The oiler is still exposed. It still has that same cut guide on it that the 140 has. Comes over to the same proximity sensor. There's the oiler, but two things really that make the 150 different is an all-new redesigned grabber arm. This baby really opens up to get a good bite on the wood. Again, through our experience of running this, probably right about 22, maybe 23 inch, if you can get it squeezed in there underneath the grabber arm, and then you'll have enough saw bar to come by and cut that off. But this baby is big. I do like this design a lot more than the kind of push forward that are on either the 140 or the 120 unit. It just does a lot better job of squeezing down on it. The cylinder in this one is a 4-inch, again, custom built cylinder, so even more splitter tonnage than the 140, and the 140 more than the 120. The cradle in here where the split or where the cut piece falls in to be split is really opened up, again, because you're looking for a larger diameter round to fall down in there than what you have over on the 140. And then the last thing that really sets this one aside from the others is this sweet hydraulically adjustable wedge. So it has the same vertical upright, and you could pin this into different places if you want to, because you still have the holes in it. The wedges are a little bit different because you do have to attach the wedge to the hydraulic cylinder itself. So there's the 4-way for it. And again, we have the 6-way in this unit. The same saw motor, the same kind of principles here. You have to loosen with your 14 millimeter, go down to your 5/8, push things over to get around the shaft. Your tension screw. And just a lot bigger bar. This does take a 93 count or 93 tooth count chain. Either the 140 or the 120 take a 78 tooth count chain. All three units are the Harvester bar and chain. It's the 18HX series, and is the 404 pitched, so they're all similar in that regard. It just comes down to how many driver teeth are on the actual chain. Again, same kind of table as the 140, a lot bigger than the 120 is. So there's your pusher plate for shoving everything through. I find myself using the hydraulic wedge a lot more than I thought I would, just because it's so easy to move it up and down. You can catch everything, you know, pretty much right in the sweet spot, so you have less resplits. Now, obviously, this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you are cutting a 23-inch or a 24-inch diameter piece of wood on this, you are going to have 6 large pieces. So I know they're working on doing bigger wedges and more wedges, possibly an 8-way, but just common sense dictates that if you take pretty much a pizza box and draw 6 lines on it, that's about what you're going to get out of this. So you will have a couple of resplits if you don't like those big, you know, clunky all-nighters. If you're feeding an outdoor stove, they're pretty nice. But again, there's our 150. All right, so here's the sales pitch. The 120 works great for homestead, farmstead, firewood startup, somebody looking to fill an outdoor stove or 2 Maybe it's a greenhouse, maybe it's a big garage, maybe it's a shop, maybe it's your own place, your brothers, sisters, aunts, uncle, mother, father, something. You're splitting somewhere 10 to 50 plus cords a year. That would be 16-inch diameter or smaller. Again, available as a 4-way or a 6-way. 10,650 gets you the 4-way and a 14-pin connection. The 140 is a little bit more robust, and it works great for like your firewood startups, looking to do 10 to 100 cord a year or better. A lot more heavy duty if you own an F350 or a 3500 versus a 3/4 ton. This is kind of the unit for you. It's a lot more robust, a couple extra 100 pounds in this one. Lots of heavy duty features. It's definitely overbuilt for what it is. Glenn Halverson is a logger from way back, and he knows what it's like to be 5 miles out in the bush and have something break, so he's done what he can to kind of foolproof it. Just running a lot heavier cylinder in it. You know, it's a custom 3.5, the upgraded saw motor. I say this one's good for your firewood startups because it has that log length cut guide in it. You're just kind of having to guess or run longer pieces. Out of the 120, all 3 units, the maximum cut length is 22-inch, but on either the 140 or the 150, there is that electronic eye that picks up the pieces. So if you wanted to grab, you know, a 16-inch cut every time, the processor will figure that out, and it does come set as a factory standard at the 16-inch increment. Now that's, you know, accurate within a 1/2 inch every cut. Everything does kind of move around on the table just a little bit. Then when you get into the 150, this is definitely firewood production material. The saw cuts really fast. You're looking at a bigger diameter. The same log length guide, upgraded cylinder still for more cutting or for more splitting length, if I could talk today. Price, sorry. HWP 140B is $16,500 with that 4-way and a 14-pin. The 150 is $21,500, and that's standard with the hydraulically adjustable 4-way. The 6-way on all the units are optional, and they all come with the 14-pin, and we can do that in-cab setup. All right, so talking about the in-cab harness, so you basically come from the Halverson unit here. It plugs into the skid steer side, so this plug stays with your connections, and then the processor plug stays with everything else. Normally, other machines have the hydraulic lines that run between the boom and the cab, so that gives you something to zip tie to. The Bobcats run everything inside the boom, so we just end up zip tying a couple of things here. And I come up over the rear hood, loop around the horizontal bar here, and then it goes inside the cab. The Bobcat units have a little plastic decal that comes out right back here. It kind of gives easy access to get into the air conditioning and the heat controls, and it's also just a quick access to get into the cab itself to where the controllers go. So you do get 2 controllers that zip tie inside the machine onto the front of the joystick controls. And I'll use these on anything that has joysticks, whether it's something in the excavator or a skid steer. So they're all going to be marked, you know, left and right, and then gives you a top piece. So again, there's our cable coming in from being outside the cab. Just bring everything down. 2 zip ties, mount the controllers. Every button on these will do something. The 150, I believe it's the bottom right one, activates the diverter valve. So then when you're running the grab arm up and down, which is the top 2 on the left hand, is what runs the wedge up and down on the 150. So if you are running something with a steering wheel, whether it's a front end loader, maybe a telehandler, we do a joystick kind of remote here. Well, not remote, it's wired, but everything on here does something. So this is your table, split and return, the grab arm up and down, and then around the front. The red one is the saw. That's how we use it. So you have your options of either the in-cab harness for wiring them in, or the single-handed controller there. So I don't know if I'm supposed to show this off or not, but I'm going to anyway. You've probably seen it in a couple of the little backdrops. This is the all-new HWP 100. This one is a prototype. They're not releasing these yet. Kind of been the driving force on these because I think there's a big market for them, whether it's on an MT machine like this or a tractor that doesn't have a case drain line. Pretty much this runs a 2-line system, and then we're fortunate enough to have the 14 pin on this one, but we were running this on a Toro Dingo, so I had another switch that going up, so I didn't have a chance yet to cut and wire this in for the 14 pin. You'll see it's the same recessed oiler, just like the 120, a similar table like the 120, but then, as I mentioned, I really love the grabber arm on that 150. There it is in the mini-me version on this 100. There are no cab controls with this. So basically how this unit works, when you're in the cut position, the clamp is automatically down. You flip a switch, which uses the same diverter valve out of the 150 that runs the wedge up and down. So you press and hold the electric button, grab the auxiliary controls like you would for like your grapple open close, and that will cut and return the saw. This one does not automatically return, so you do have to do that manually. But then when you throw the switch the other direction, as you split the piece that just went in, the grabber arm itself raises back up on its own before the table goes, and then reversely, when the table goes to retract backwards, the grabber arm is the first thing to go down to hold pressure on the wood to leave a piece exposed, and the table slides out just like the other ones do. So with the 100, it is supposed to run on 6 to about 9 gallons a minute. It still needs the more pressure, just like the other 3 do, that 2850 or more, because that turns into the saw speed and torque on the chain, and then the pressure also converts over to your splitter tonnage. So again, this part of the video is just the walk around, showing off the 4 models from Halverson, and we will do an actual operational video. I just needed to do a comparison and contrast on the 4 models here, and just kind of run through some things. No, I do not have a price on the 100 as of yet because it is not released. Just wanted to kind of throw it out here while we had all 4 processors on the woodlot from Halverson Wood Products. We have been his longest lasting dealer here in the U.S. We've been doing this since 2015. We've moved a couple hundred units. I've lost count by now, and just really excited to have all 4 units here. And like I said, we will fire these up. I'll probably run everything off of the Toolcat, maybe. It's just a little bit easier to get in and out, but whichever unit I choose to power it with, I'll run all of them on that same machine, just so that way nobody says anything about the gallons per minute are different, or the pressures are different, or blah, blah, blah. So these are the 4 units from Halverson Wood Products. All right, so these are the units from Halverson Wood Products. Prototype HWP 100. I'm hoping, fingers are crossed, that it comes in under 8 grand, but we'll see what the market determines. HWP 120, 10,650. HWP 140B is 16.5. HWP 150 is 21.5. All 3 of the bigger units come with the standard adjustable 4-way. The 150 is hydraulically adjustable, and then they all have that 14-pin connection. If you need the in-cab harness, I believe they're $515 to throw that in. The 6-way wedges are, I believe, $650. We can do the 6-way in lieu of the 4-way, so you'd only get the 1 wedge. It's a $300 upgrade across those units. Everybody is always asking about a free shipping option. I wish that I had that, but you know what? They still charge me something to bring it from Minnesota to Pennsylvania. Now, we do try to bring in multiple units at once, so you can get a little bit of a bulk discount on shipping, but it still costs me about $800 a unit to bring them to here. We do ship all over the US. We've even got a couple pieces up in Alaska, so we would love to earn your business with the sales quote. Again, we are a dealer for Halverson Wood Products. I have my own margins to work within, and we will package something together for you. So please give me a phone call. It's 833-SPLITTER. That's 833-775-4887. You can also email me at sales@shaverequipment.com. Another piece that we always get asked questions on are if we offer financing, and yes, we do. If you jump over to the website, which is shaverequipment.com, up in the top right-hand corner, you will see a finance link. If you click on that, it runs it over to an application for ACG equipment financing. Scott and his team do a stellar job. They're really personable, they're quick, it's easy. It's actually a one-page application. It's set up as a business app, so business name, your name, the address, contact info, and then the amount that you want. If you're doing it as a personal loan, then just fill out your personal information twice. Once in the business name, once in the owner info, hit click submit, and Scott and somebody from his team will reach out to you shortly. Again, just want to say thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to stay up to date on everything that we have going on. And this is all of the processors from Halverson Wood Products. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.